The gods have never been more clear about how little they care for humanity than here in Book 4. Also, the Catalogue of the ships might have had a point after all. Don't worry though, so long as you watch this video, you still won't have to read it. Hello and welcome, or welcome back. Here in this video series, we're going to be reading the great books of Western civilization, starting with the Iliad. This is Book 4 from the Robert Fagles translation. As always, I'll begin with a plot summary and follow it up with analysis and commentary. Zeus and the rest of the gods look on as peace is nearly achieved on the battlefield. Zeus muses aloud, pretending to consider ending the war right then and there, just to make Hera angry. Right on cue, Hera voices how distressed and angry she would be if Zeus ended the war and made all of her labor come to nothing. Zeus, infuriated, disapproves of the endless nature of her anger, reminding her how important Troy is to him and how, while he chooses to let Troy fall, he's hardly willing, for they always sacrifice to him on time, on demand, and keep him very pleased. She'd better not get in the way, he says, if he decides that he wants to destroy one of her favorite cities someday. Hera then gladly names her 3 favorite cities, telling Zeus to destroy them whenever he pleases, so long as Troy will fall, and the Trojans, right now, be the ones to break the truce between the armies. Zeus complies, and sends Athena down to Pandarus, one of the Trojan archers. She whispers to him and encourages him to shoot at Menelaus, making him think of the glory that he would win if he were to somehow bring him down. But Athena herself makes sure that the arrow does not hit Menelaus in a mortal spot. Agamemnon nevertheless summons a healer, and orders the rest of the armies to gear up for battle. Agamemnon strides through the ranks then, and mocks the courage of each captain that he sees, including Idomeneus, Giant Ajax, Little Ajax, Diomedes, and Odysseus, in an effort to fire them up for battle. Most of the captains respond to this treatment as intended, but Odysseus gets offended and lashes out. Surprisingly, Agamemnon makes peace with him, acknowledging that he was wrong to mock him so. Finally, the battle begins anew, as many on both sides are slain. I was very confused when I first read the battle, because there were lots of things going on that I had never seen or really heard of in any other fight scenes I'd seen in movies or TV, or even read about. So I figured I'd go ahead and explain them real fast. First of all, soldiers gain glory both by killing opposing soldiers as well as stripping their armor as loot. So they'll often try to get a hold of the soldier's body after killing him, so that they can have the leisure to do so. Meanwhile, a dead man's comrades will try to protect his body from being taken and stripped so that they can give him proper burial rites. There isn't really much of an afterlife for the Greeks, so honoring the fallen person's body is really the best that they can do. That's all explained bit by bit throughout the epic, but figure by hearing it now, it'll save a lot of confusion later on. Agamemnon actually took back his insults when Odysseus lashed out at him. I must not bait you so beyond the limit, must not give you orders. I know for a fact that the spirit in your heart is well disposed to me and all my efforts. We see eye to eye. May the gods make all our bluster come to nothing. Where was that 3 books ago? Why didn't he act like this with Achilles? The answer, however, is also right there in the quote. I know for a fact that the spirit in your heart is well disposed to me and all my efforts. We see eye to eye. Achilles and Agamemnon do not see eye to eye, not on anything. To Achilles, Agamemnon is just an obstacle to him getting his greatest glory, which is a reward for which he sacrificed his life. Whereas to Agamemnon, Achilles is an insubordinate soldier who's trying to be commander instead of him, taking away his chance for glory. If it wasn't clear before, it's clear now that the fight with Achilles got as big as it was because Agamemnon could not trust that they were of one mind, of one common purpose. In fact, if somebody besides Achilles had told Agamemnon off about taking someone else's prize back in Book 1, he probably would have apologized and retreated, just like we see here with Odysseus. However, if it wasn't over Briseis, then it would have been over something else later. So, would it really have been different? Probably not. It's really about the glory that they both strive for, and that's most clear here. Book 4 also dives deeper into many other themes that we've discussed in previous books. On the one hand, we know that Zeus is only messing with Hera. His promises to Achilles and Agamemnon prevent him from ending the war right now. On the other hand, the other gods, as well as the mortals below, seem to believe that this is up to Zeus, ultimately. Do as you please, but none of the deathless gods will ever praise you. What next? Battle again? Or Pax from Zeus, the great steward on high who rules our mortal wars? It's said much more often by humans than by gods, but Troy is fated to fall. Nevertheless, it's the gods who have to act to make it happen. We also know that Zeus can make decisions that prolong or avoid a certain fate for as long as possible. His promise to Achilles forces him to do this by delaying the destruction of Troy and giving glory to the Trojans in the meanwhile. He also did this before the Iliad to preserve his power, by avoiding having a son that would overthrow him. The extent to which free will is active is definitely confusing. After Zeus decides to let the war continue on, he sends Athena down to see to it that the Trojans are the first ones to break the truce. And she does this by firing the fool's heart inside of Pandarus to try to goad him into shooting Menelaus. "Let me tempt you," she says. To make this even more complicated, different emotions and phenomena on the battlefield and within men's hearts are described as being urged on or forced by the gods. So does free will even exist? For gods or for humans? Yes, it does. But without a doubt, it's also under outside influence. In the previous video, I quoted Bernard Knox as claiming that Helen acted like a god when she ran off from Argos with Paris. Here in this book, we see what exactly the gods can do that resembles that. Zeus says, "Men might still live on in royal Priam's citadel, and Helen? Menelaus just might lead her home again." Hera objects to this. She doesn't want peace between the two armies because she's not done getting out her anger yet. She, and all the other gods, pay no heed at all to the suffering and death that their actions and the fulfillment of their desires inflict on mortals. Hera flippantly and casually submits 3 cities worth of people to Zeus's ire whenever he pleases, just so that she can have the chance to get out her anger now. Zeus isn't much better. When responding to Hera, he says, "Whenever I am bent on tearing down some city filled with men you love, to please myself, never attempt to thwart my fury. Give me my way. For I gave you this, all of my own free will, but hardly willing." Both Hera and Zeus, as much as they might say that they love a certain person or a certain city full of people, they really only love them insofar as it pleases themselves. I didn't mention it before, but Helen calls out Aphrodite on this when she resists her. "Go to him yourself. You hover beside him. Abandon the gods' high road and be immortal. Suffer for Paris. Protect Paris for eternity, until he makes you his wedded wife, that or his slave." Aphrodite does not do this. No matter how much Paris might be her favorite mortal, she does not take any pains upon herself for him. She doesn't love Paris. She doesn't care for Helen at all either. It is only her pleasure that they lose themselves in love, her domain of influence. Likewise, Zeus loves Troy because they make regular sacrificial offerings to him. Zeus was only kidding about ending the war, but Hera's reaction, or really Zeus's comments on Hera's reaction, give us a window into what it means for Achilles' rage to look like that of a god. "Insatiable Hera! How great are the pains that Priam and Priam's sons have heaped on you, that you rage on relentless, forever bent on raising the well-built heights of Troy. Only if you could breach their gates and their long walls and devour Priam and Priam's sons and the Trojan armies raw, then you just might cure your rage at last." Knox writes in the introduction that this quote seems to indicate what it looks like for a god to hate or be angry, but I really disagree. It seems to be suggested as an impossible eventuality, similar to saying, "when pigs fly." Zeus is suggesting this ironically, almost as if it's beyond the bounds of what is acceptable. And if so, we definitely see that Achilles has hinted that his will be similar. Each death is extremely violent, and oftentimes afterward, the lineage and family and the origin of the person killed is shared on the page. What this does, at least for me, is emphasize the humanity and dignity of each person, even as they die. Despite talking about the appeal of war to the fighting men and the glory that comes from it when they win, Homer understands on a deep level the real brutality of it. He understands that there are no nameless deaths in war. I think this is the purpose of the Catalogue of the Ships as well. Homer humanizes each fallen soldier by giving him a face, a family, a name, and a homeland. And perhaps this is necessary for us to not read this book and just see the extras of an action movie getting torn apart, but to see real people. Meanwhile, the gods who encourage the action remain safe and untouched. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, please like it, and leave a comment down below to let me know what it was, or if there's something that's still confusing that you still have questions about. See you next time.